Well, good morning, everyone. Well, I say good morning, but I guess you could be watching this in the afternoon or night or whenever you want. Who am I to tell you when you watch this video? But it is morning here for me, and it's a beautiful morning. This is the first morning that I woke up and I thought, man, it feels like fall outside. Now, I do live in South Florida, if you were unaware, and so fall here, I think it was like 72, but it felt like fall to me, and just a beautiful morning. So I got out to drive my Porsche, and just enjoy a nice day. I had the windows down and stuff, and it just felt great. Obviously, I can't do that while I'm talking to you guys because the audio quality will be terrible. But you join me today somewhere where I am not usually found, just driving around here in the city. Driving in the city, a stick shift manual car is not very fun. It's not very fun to ride a bike around here either. Lots of traffic, roads are very bumpy like that, and so I don't usually come out here. But today, I'm coming to one of my favorite filming locations, which happens to be a parking garage here in the city. It's a great spot. It's very like photogenic spot. I'm not a filmographer or a photographer or whatever, so I don't know what you call it, but it's very picturesque, let's say that. And so I'm here to do that. Today, I'm finally going to talk to you about all the issues my Porsche 911 has. And I know that most of you guys are just here because you want to know what I paid for it. After my last video, several people were asking me, well, what did you pay for it? Tell us what you paid for it. Well, I'm going to get there because what I paid for it and what the value of it is kind of complicated, and I'll explain later. So we're going to head over to the parking garage now after I cruise by the beach because I'm down here. So anyway, guys, stick around and enjoy the video. Of course, anytime I'm headed over to the beach, I get stuck waiting for the drawbridge. It's just a fact of going to the beach. Well, you join me now at one of my favorite filming locations, a parking deck down here in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And I love filming here. Like, the buildings behind just look so cool. You can get great shots of the cars or bikes. I think I actually filmed a video about my Ford up here. The only problem is it's always super windy up here because we're in the city and we're up. I'm probably just gonna have to do get pictures and shots of the car and then voice over them later. I think that's what I'm gonna do because it's really windy. I don't even know how this little intro that I'm filming right now is gonna turn out. And I actually had I have my DJI gimbal, and I actually set it down to film this little intro, and it fell over twice, and now it's all scratched up on the back. So that sucks. So now I'm holding it in my hand, but that's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these shots of the car. Like I said, I'm just gonna voice over them later, I think. And yeah, I'm gonna let you guys know pretty much everything that is wrong with this car. For those of you who are new to the channel or you haven't caught my last couple videos, this is my 2001 Porsche 911 that I bought back in January, and I've owned for almost a year now. It has 112,000 miles and it's 20 years old, and with the age comes a couple issues. Nothing major is wrong with the car, it runs and drives great, but let's start talking about the things that are wrong with the car. The number one issue I'm having is with the central locking system. Porsche 996s are notorious for having issues with this because of several micro switches in the doors, trunk lid, and engine lid that can fail pretty easily. Because of this issue, sometimes the car will not lock. It can only be locked physically with the key, and it is kind of an annoying issue, but more annoying than it is detrimental to the functionality of the car. All of these micro switches can be replaced, and that should fix the issue, and I plan on working on that problem soon. The next issue I'm having is with the electronic front trunk release. I keep having to grease the latch mechanism to allow it to work. It works with the emergency release just fine. I think honestly the parts just weren't used for so long that they started to seize up, and the more I use them, the better they should get. Cosmetically, the car is in pretty good shape for being 20 years old, but one of the more noticeable issues is this rubber around the headlights is starting to degrade, but I do plan on upgrading the car to the LED headlights eventually, so that should take care of that problem. And it also looks like on the back someone backed into a trailer hitch and dented above the license plate. The clear coat on the roof is also a little rough in some spots. It's kind of hard to tell in this footage, but again, I think with a good detailing this problem could be taken care of. Arguably my least favorite thing about this car is these rims. First of all, I'm not a big fan of black rims. I don't like the fake studs around them, and also the rims are pretty beat up, but the worst thing about them is they don't even fit on the car. The rear tires are too wide and they actually scrape on the inside, and the front tires are actually too wide and also too large for their wheel well, and they actually rub when you turn the car on full lock. Let's move to the interior of the car, where we find this beautiful Metropole blue interior that is actually in really good shape for a 20-year-old car, but there is some wear on the parts you would expect. For instance, the steering wheel has some pretty significant wear on it. Luckily that can be fixed with leather repair. The gear shift also, you can see, has considerable wear on it, but again, that's a part that can be easily repainted. In the gauge cluster, you can see some pixelation on the screens, a very common issue. Luckily, I would like to change these gauges out for the white gauges anyway, so that's not a huge issue. And also there are some scratches on the dashboard as well. This car was spec'd with the sport seats with the embossed Porsche logo, which looks absolutely fantastic. I love these seats. Unfortunately, the driver's side bolster has seen better days, as it has significant cracks and tears in it. I hope to order a leather repair kit and get this fixed as soon as possible before the wear gets worse. The rest of the interior has regular wear and tear that you would usually see on a car this age, some cracks and chips, but nothing major. I would like to get these door sills repainted, as they are also not looking as good as they could, but this car has that soft touch paint popular in the early 2000s, and that can make it kind of difficult. One day when I put the sunroof back, the headliner got caught in the mechanism and ripped off, and I actually already repaired it. I just have to put it back in the car. Now that I'm back at home, let's get into the part of the video that I think you've all been waiting for. What did I pay for my Porsche 911? And I'm gonna get into that, I promise, so stick around. But first, I wanna kind of set the scene for you guys a little bit. The Porsche 911 that I purchased does have some choice options that I think increase the value to this day, and they definitely increased the value when the car was purchased brand new. Number one, the car has the Metropole or Metropolitan blue interior. This is second in rarity only to the seafoam green interior that you hardly ever see. In addition to that, it has the sport seats fitted with the embossed Porsche logos. It also has a sunroof, which now actually kind of devalues the car. A lot of people actually go in and do sunroof deletes on their car, but back in 2001 when the car was purchased new, it was an option that cost money to upgrade. And it has some other things as well, but the gist of it is, all of those options and the car itself brought the sticker price to just over $70,000. Now, of course, through the power of depreciation, the car value has come down a little bit. So let's finally talk about what I paid for it. I mentioned that in 2001, my car's value was about $70,000 sticker price, but that was $70,000 back in 2001, 20 years ago. Today, adjusted for inflation, $70,000 is about the equivalent of $110,000. And it is crazy to think about somebody walking into a dealership today and paying $110,000 for the car that's currently in my garage. Obviously, the tag is a lot different. The car is not as nice as a modern Porsche, but back then, it was kind of the primo car you could have purchased. It has one-touch up and down windows. It had all kinds of features that made it worth $110,000 in comparison to the cars of the day. But anyway, let's stick to the $70,000 figure that I just mentioned. I didn't pay half of that for the car. I did not pay a third of that for the car. I didn't even pay 20% of that for the car. That's right, the Porsche 911 that at one time cost the equivalent of $110,000 today is sitting in my garage, and I paid $13,000 for it. If any of you guys keep a watch on the used Porsche market, you might be thinking $13,000 for a 996. Even though the 996 is like the most hated Porsche, $13,000 is still really cheap for a car that runs and drives and doesn't seem to be in too bad a shape. And you're right about that, it's not. But a quick Google search will tell you why my car is valued at $13,000. And also, some of you guys may have guessed based on the thumbnail, the hint I gave you earlier, and the fact that I have a little love affair with rebuilt cars, But yes, my Porsche has a rebuilt title, and that's what makes the value so low. So let's get into the car's history a little bit, what I think about what I paid for it, and how that value compares to what the used car market is today. Being that my car has a rebuilt title, it comes with a history, as all rebuilt title cars do. And the history of a car with a rebuilt title can be kind of hard to hash out. It's very speculative, it requires a lot of research, and so by no means is the outcome that I've had general advice for anyone else. I happen to have had a great experience with my Ford Focus. I'm hoping to have a great experience by this car, but please do not take what I'm saying as advice for you. You really need to do your research, consult with mechanics, all that stuff before you buy a car with a rebuilt title. But here's my experience. The history of my car, as far as I can tell, is that it was bought new in 2001 by a guy living in California who essentially babied the car for the next 17 years of its life. He only drove it 100,000 miles in that time. He was a Porsche Club of America member, maintained the car meticulously at a Porsche dealership, and he drove it up until 2018 when he unfortunately rear-ended someone and wrecked the front of the car. The car was then issued a salvage title and put at auction by State Farm Insurance. And why it was issued a rebuilt title, I'm not really sure, because when I look at the pictures of the car, it looks like it has some bumper damage, the front hood was bent, but the wheels look perfectly in line still. It still ran and drove. Obviously a Porsche's engine is in the back, so a front end collision would not really affect the engine that much. And so I'm not really sure why it was issued a rebuilt title. From what I can understand, essentially the guy obviously loved the car, babied it so much, he could not stand having a car that had an accident on its history. So he essentially convinced State Farm that the car was worth so little now that it had an accident that he needed just a buyout from the insurance. And like I said, how much of that is true, I don't really know. I just have to go on what I've heard. From there, at auction, it was purchased by a guy in Georgia who essentially runs a business buying and selling salvage title cars once he's gotten a rebuilt title for them. He sold it to the guy I bought it from here in South Florida. The guy that I purchased it from was just a big 996 collector. He had a turbo, he had a cabriolet, he had one more car just like mine but in blue, and then he actually bought this one for his wife to use, but she did not like the manual transmission. And so he was selling this one to actually go buy the lesser valued Tiptronic version. So at $13,000, did I get a good value? Well, that's a little hard to tell, because if you've looked at the used Porsche market lately, or the used car market in general lately, it's absolutely insane. And of course the Porsche market is just elevated even more. And so what I paid for my car in relation to how much it's worth is kind of hard to tell. If we look at these Bring a Trailer auctions, you can see that the prices of 996s vary widely from $10,000 all the way up to a perfectly mint condition 996 Turbo worth about $100,000, maybe even more. But my car, based on what options it has and the fact that it is a rare color combination, it's a manual, I would put the value of my car between $20,000 and $25,000 if it was in perfect running condition. I feel like that estimate is conservative. My car could even be in the $25,000 to $30,000 range if it was in mint condition, but I'm going to use $22,000 as the price that mine would be worth if it was in perfect condition with no rebuilt title. A rebuilt title is supposed to devalue the car about 30 to 35%, leaving 65% to 70% as the value of the car. If I take 65% and multiply that by the supposed price of $22,000, it gives me a value of $14,300, which means that I paid $1,300 less for my car than I should have. But my car is not in perfect condition. It has the issues I mentioned earlier, and so that is going to put a little bit of a damper on my price. The central locking issue that I mentioned, I believe should be able to be fixed for a couple $100s, but it is an electrical issue and it could be more than that, who knows? But I actually did not know that that issue existed when I purchased the car. When I bought it, it was not doing that. And when I talked to the guy about it, of course, he claimed he had no idea about it either. The wheels, it definitely needs new ones, and I'm already working on that. A new set of wheels for a 911, 996, if they're in perfect condition, can be about $1,000. Obviously, I will look around the used market for that, so that's a little bit less. And the car has also had some issues that I've already fixed. When I got it, the speakers were blown out, so I've already replaced the speakers. That didn't really require a lot of money, but it did require a lot of my time. The headlight was also not working. It ended up being some corroded wires that I did fix. and it's working fine now. As I mentioned, the headliner is not in the car. That was also not an issue when I purchased it. The headliner kind of came unglued and fell one day when I was putting the sunroof back, so I didn't know about that when I got the car either. But I think for the $1,300 less than I paid, than the value that I calculated earlier, I think I can get the car pretty close to being perfect. And that would kind of give me good value in the car. And of course, the Porsche market is rising. The further away I get from the rebuilt title being issued, the less it kind of matters. So I feel like I got a decent deal, or at least kind of broke even on my deal, and I would not have had the ability to buy one in perfect condition. Buying one at this price point was really my only option, as I mentioned in a previous video. And so I feel pretty good about the purchase, and I'm really looking forward to kind of getting some work done. Of course, for me, it gives me opportunity to make more content for you guys, which I'm excited about. It also gives me a little bit of freedom. The fact that it has a rebuilt title means I don't feel so constrained to make sure the car is kept perfectly. It doesn't mean I feel like everything has to stay in mint condition. I don't feel like I need to keep the miles down. One day I'd like to wrap the car, maybe do some custom interior work. So the fact that it has a rebuilt title kind of gives me a little peace of mind and comfort when doing those things. But anyway, guys, I'm not gonna bore you anymore with all the information about the car. If you did enjoy today's video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. And also subscribe for more content to come on my Porsche or my motorcycles and all my adventures on 2 and 4 wheels. Bye.